As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court sided with the Biden administration in a case involving a razor wire fence along Texas's border with Mexico. The court's decision allows border control agents to cut the wire that Texas had installed along the border. This coming from Fox News. The wire had been installed as part of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's broader fight with the administration over immigration enforcement and attempts to stem the historic flow of migrants across the border since Biden's term began. In a 5-4 vote Monday, the justices granted an emergency appeal from the Biden administration, which has been in an escalating standoff at the border with Texas and had objected to an appellate ruling in favor of the state. So where does Texas go from here? And what can be done legally, practically, constitutionally, and what should Texas do at this point? Well, we will talk about all that and more right after this. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1-ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. All right, so we are talking about the U.S. Supreme Court decision yesterday, which was not an opinion. It was simply a decision that vacated an injunction against the federal government from coming onto private property and cutting down these barbed wire fences. And so there's a lot of legal question around this. I had an opportunity this morning on my American Family Radio Network show. You can listen to the full show on afr.net. It's called Jenna Ellis in the Morning, to speak with Matt Rinaldi, who is the Republican State Party chairman for the state of Texas. And we got into some of the legal discussion, and I want to play that interview for you here. And then on the flip side of that, Don Huffines is going to join the program today to talk about some of these solutions, assuming that none of the legal battles are successful in Texas. So we're going to really break this down. But this is the interview from this morning with Matt Rinaldi. So joining me now to talk more about this and what Texas may do about it is our good friend Matt Rinaldi, who is the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. So Matt, first, your reaction to this opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court.
Thanks, Jenna, for having me on. I appreciate it. I mean, shocked, saddened. This is one of the worst decisions that has come back from the Supreme Court in recent memory, and that's really saying something. Effectively, what the court said is, and I don't think the explanation does it justice, it allowed the Supreme Court to come onto private property and destroy the state's property, which are the barriers, in order to allow the flow of illegal aliens into the United States. So effectively, this is a new supremacy clause, effectively, that the Supreme Court established. That is, nothing can be supreme to the federal government's ability to have open borders, and it's an absolute disgrace.
I would agree with you that this is an absolute disgrace. And I was really saddened to see Roberts and Barrett side with the leftists, which is why we've said for a while, for all of these people who are saying, oh, we have the best conservative court now by a 6-vote majority. It's just simply not accurate when we see decisions like this. So what happened to state sovereignty, and where does Texas go from here?
Yeah, and by the way, not only state sovereignty, but personal property rights. Let's keep in mind these are individual Texans that have allowed the state to erect barriers on their own private property. And what the Supreme Court says is the federal government cannot be prevented from destroying those barriers against the wishes of the private property owner. So, where I think Texas goes from here, Abbott needs to be strong. I think DPS put out a great statement last night. I think DPS needs to continue erecting these barriers. And if the federal government cuts the barriers, I think they need to get DPS right behind wherever the federal government is, follow them around, and erect a barrier right behind it. That when they cut that barrier, erect another barrier right behind it. I think they need to stay strong, and I think they need to resist this decision as best they can.
And you're talking, so DPS is the Texas Department of Public Safety, and so a lot of people have been suggesting now that Texas needs to just completely, basically ignore this decision from the Supreme Court. This presents obviously a conflict because the Supreme Court does have authority to review these types of decisions, but it doesn't actually have the authority to do what it did. So how should conservatives parse that issue and that problem, and how is Texas going to consider the legal issues here?
So I think if you look at the statement from the DPS and the statement from Greg Abbott, I think they both know that they don't even need to resist the order to effectively resist the order, if that makes sense. Because the only thing the order does is it removes a lower court order preventing the federal government from cutting this razor wire. But what DPS is saying was we're still going to put up barriers. So, okay, cut the razor wire here. We'll just come right after and put it back up. Then you can cut it, and we'll just come back and just put it right back. And I think that's what you effectively get into. So we still don't know what the ultimate decision will be in the case. This was just a temporary restraining order. I think there's still a chance we prevail in this case as well. And there's ways to get around what this decision effectively said.
And the statement from Greg Abbott, this was posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, yesterday. Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, says this is not over. Texas's razor wire is an effective deterrent to the illegal crossings Biden encourages. I will continue to defend Texas's constitutional authority to secure the border and prevent the Biden administration from destroying our property. This seems so simple, Matt Rinaldi, that obviously the wire is a preventative measure. It's not even something as perhaps controversial in a humanitarian sense, like some of those buoys that were put into lakes that were that was kind of accused of actually being harmful to people as they were trying to cross those rivers. I have a little bit different take on that, which, you come into this country illegally at your own risk, right? And if you get harmed in the process, well, so be it. We're allowed to defend our country. But this type of razor wire isn't even as controversial. And so what does this portend in terms of the broader national conversation about illegal immigration and Biden encouraging that?
No, it isn't as controversial, by the way. I mean, razor wire is something you see around a fence at a junkyard in your hometown. I mean, it's not something that's controversial at all. I think where we go from here is I think Greg Abbott, his third term in office, has had enough. I think he's taking strong and real steps right now to combat the Biden administration. And we know this because Biden's resisting what Greg Abbott's doing, where he hasn't been before, specifically the buoys, specifically the razor wire. And I do think we need to go further and say what this is, an invasion under Article 1, Section 10, and that the state does have the power to do anything to repel this invasion, including sending people back over the border, which we have not done yet.
Yeah, and that's where listeners will know that I supported Don Huffines in the primary personally, just in my personal capacity in the Texas gubernatorial race that the last time that he was facing Greg Abbott, because he was very, very strong on that exact constitutional question, among other things, but especially declaring an invasion and actually using the power of the state. And so has there been conversation from, you're the chair of the Texas Republican Party. Has there been conversation with Greg Abbott about actually just going that further step and invoking that particular article? Because it seems like this conflict is only escalating in terms of the legal fight.
Yes, and I think he's come right up to doing it. And I think it's inevitable. Certainly, earlier this year, he has called what is occurring an invasion. He has started to repel people from coming over the border. So he's taken real meaningful and important steps towards addressing this issue. And I think it's just a small step further to, what Don Huffines was campaigning on and what a lot of us have advocated for, including Ken Cuccinelli and people across the country.
Yeah, and I would love to see Greg Abbott actually take that next step, because I think that puts it on even more solid legal ground. And for those of you listening who aren't as familiar with this particular part of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10.3 says no state shall, without consent of Congress, a number of things, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in a time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. And I think, Matt Rinaldi, that there's no question here that this is an invasion. I mean, we're not in the same legal pretzel maneuvering as the state of Colorado, for example, that wants to redefine what insurrection means. I mean, this isn't the Republicans saying and taking this term invasion and trying to manipulate it just to advance their own policy preference. I think just on the basic fact, I mean, it is what it is, and it is an invasion.
Yes, and I think what we're having a problem getting out of politically, and I think some of our leaders need to get out of politically, is talking about this like an immigration issue necessarily. Because once you're talking about invasion under Article 1, Section 10, you're not talking about immigration law. And even some of the legislation that was proposed last section in Texas was talking about this as an immigration issue subject to the Supremacy Clause. And it's not. When the federal government is not defending our state, we have the right to defend ourselves. And we need to assert that right very decisively and very clearly. And that's the next thing we need to do.
That is a really excellent point. And I think for conservatives, we need to underscore that, Matt Rinaldi, that this isn't an immigration issue. This isn't something that the federal Congress has the ability under Article 1, Section 8 to create the uniform rule of immigration naturalization. That is a power that then would be under the Supremacy Clause that's given to the federal government. This is something that is expressly reserved to the state because the text of the Constitution in Article 1, Section 10 talks about unless actually invaded. And so we need to be very careful how we are expressing this issue, because it isn't just about migrants or illegal immigrants that are coming across the border. That ultimately doesn't matter for what purpose they're coming here or who they are. They're not Americans. And so for whatever purpose it is, this isn't a question of immigration. It is a question of invasion, and it's a question of protecting our borders. And I think that you're absolutely right on that, and it's a spot-on point. So what is the political tenor in Texas in terms of the Republicans that are looking at this issue separate from Greg Abbott? Is there a consensus here that Texas should stand firm and do something, or is this more typical of Republicans that maybe there's a little bit of infighting?
I think there's a fairly broad consensus that we need to take bold action. I think there's a fairly broad consensus in favor of everything that Governor Abbott's done so far, and even going further. I think your holdup right now legislatively is the Texas House, run by Speaker Dade Phelan, who claims to be a Republican but effectively governs with Democrats. He governs with the Democrat coalition, and in the session previous to this, he blocked the most meaningful border legislation that was passed with Democrats supporting him. So I think there is a broad consensus. I think we have a problem in the House that we have to deal with in the primaries. I'm optimistic that it will be dealt with, and I think we can move forward united behind Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick in addressing this issue.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting, next year and certainly next term for the state of Texas, and dealing with all of these types of people that are in the Texas state legislature. We saw that through the impeachment of Ken Paxton that ultimately wasn't successful. I'm grateful that he is still the attorney general there in Texas doing some really good work, but it'll be interesting to see what Texas does. I mean, there are even calls for now secession by the state of Texas. I don't personally quite think that Texas is there yet. I think there's still a lot of legal ground and pushback that can be done. And as Matt Rinaldi said, this case is far from over yet, and we can hope and pray that the Supreme Court ultimately does the right thing. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. All right, so joining me now to discuss further is my good friend Don Huffines, who is the president of the Huffines Liberty Foundation, which is a just really great organization that does such good conservative work on policy issues for the state of Texas. And Don, I appreciate you coming on because I can think of no bigger policy issue right now in the state of Texas for conservatives than protecting the border. So your initial reaction to the Supreme Court siding with the Biden administration and allowing Border Patrol agents to just come onto private property and cut down wire and allow this invasion?
Well, hello, Jenna. And yes, I was very disappointed in the SCOTUS ruling. And I think most Texans that value their liberty and value our culture and everything else were disappointed. They didn't give a lot of background on their decisions or why they made them. But I was disappointed, but I'm not surprised. I'm just not. I just feel like that the federal government is not going to follow the Constitution, I think the way it was intended and the way it's worded, to let the states control immigration like we did for a long time. Actually, my foundation just did a white paper on that very topic. And it was really that case in the late, around 1889, where the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the federal government really would have the majority, if not all, the jurisdiction related to immigration. Before that, the states did. And the founders of our Constitution, as you probably know, set it up that way because they did not want the federal government, and they anticipated this, to weaponize the immigration process. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and I'm actually on your website right now. For those of you who are listening who want to go and read this white paper and see what Don Huffines is talking about, you can go to huffinesliberty.com and you can click on the issues tab. And this is titled Giving Power Over Immigration Back to the States. And I think that's such an important point that you raise, Don, because the federal government, of course, was supposed to be weaker ultimately than the states in terms of the overall authority to direct what was going on in each individual state. The whole point of the federal government and why we had to move to the U.S. Constitution from the Articles of Confederation in terms of U.S. history was because the federal government under the Articles of Confederation was too weak to protect the whole Union. There had to be some things that were necessary in terms of federal power to keep the Union together. So we don't see some of the problems like what the European Union, for example, is experiencing, or other types of governments throughout world history. But the problem with the United States now is that we have, as states and as citizens, ceded far too much power that is not given to the federal government under the Constitution to the federal government. And it's like we expect that the federal government can just dictate however they want to prefer Texas run its borders. And the Constitution actually speaks to that in Article 1, Section 10, that says that the state government, when actually invaded, can promulgate acts of war. Actually, I mean, they have a right to defend their states.
Well, that's the way it's worded, and I certainly believe that. I've been talking about it for a few years now, that this was an obvious solution for Texas to implement Article 1, Section 10 and declare it an invasion. And like you just said, it clearly gives the state the authority to do what it needs to do if the federal government's either causing or not helping out to repel the invasion, such as charge a tariff, create a tax, raise an army, defend themselves, and enter into negotiations or treaties with a foreign nation. And I like to point out that this is obviously an invasion. You need to have 10,000 folks pouring in across your border, and nobody really knows who most of these people are, and they're from 150 different countries and or more. And we have 1,200 miles plus of the border with Mexico, which is 63%. We being Texas, that any way you look at it, we're being invaded, and so we should utilize this. And I think Abbott really would, and if he thought he could win. But I just don't think after what happened this week, the federal government's going to ever relinquish that authority and let the state declare that without a lot of pushback. But there's other ways, Jenna, that we can secure the border without getting involved with the federal court system. It's very resolvable. And that's what I have focused on for several years now, is coming up with solutions, seeing beyond the obvious, that we don't get involved with the federal government. I'm all for declaring the invasion, but and the way to do that is to hold Mexico accountable economically. We're at war with Mexico. It might not be a shooting war, but we're certainly at war. I mean, they are our number one enemy, probably in the world, way more than Russia or North Korea or China. They've done more to undermine Texas and America than all those countries combined. 100,000 people dead annually from fentanyl poisoning, and almost all of it smuggled in from Mexico, most of it made in Mexico. We lost 58,000 in 10 years in Vietnam. We've lost almost double that in 1 year in the USA. And these cartels are the most dangerous criminal organizations in the world. There's really no argument to that effect. And no one's crossed the river for decades without paying the cartels. That's too big of a money maker for them. And they funnel all that money back to the politicians that run Mexico and the judges, and all the drug money, all the sex trafficking, and they're murdering and things like that. So this is a vicious cycle. I really believe this is premeditated against Texas. They have weaponized demographics, they being the Democrats, the leftists, the communists, the deep state. They're all the same. And demographics is political, 100% political. I mean, you don't run for office without checking all the demographics of where you're going to run. And I was on the Border Security Committee and also when I was in the Texas Senate for 4 years, and I was vice chairman of that. So I saw everything you could see down there, and it really is a disaster. This really is a war with Mexico, and the leftists know that if they change the demographics of Texas, they will never. It would be really hard for a Republican to ever be president of the United States. So they take over the USA, and that means we've lost the country, and that means really we've lost the free world as we know it across the world.
So, Don Huffines, I think that your response there was so eloquent to show why this is a much bigger issue than just the border in Texas, just border security. It really goes to the Democrats' bigger agenda, which is the transformation of America from within, and really trying to ensure that conservatives and real Republicans, like what you campaigned on, never have the levers of power in the United States again. And this is why the Supreme Court really does need to step in and ensure that the Constitution is actually followed. And when I was talking to Matt Rinaldi this morning on my radio program, he said, and I thought this was a brilliant analysis, that this legal question needs to be specifically about what is and is not an invasion. And as you rightly pointed out, this obviously is an invasion at the border. There's no question about that. We're not trying to just shoehorn or a definition of an invasion into this that really isn't the proper term, kind of like what the Democrats are using with the term insurrection, right? They're manipulating themselves into pretzels to try to reinvent the definition of what an insurrection means for purposes of the language of the Constitution. This is clearly an invasion. And so that needs to be the legal question rather than this being a question of immigration, because all of these people that are at the border that are coming through, they're not looking to immigrate because that necessarily requires a legal process. That necessarily requires the government actually contemplating and counting these people and them going through the process that is established. And so how effective do you think that Governor Abbott is going to be, and Ken Paxton, who I'm grateful is still the Texas Attorney General and he beat impeachment, but how much do you see Greg Abbott really stepping up to go that final step to actually declare an invasion?
Well, he actually declared that when he had the lawsuit, the federal government sued him to get rid of the floaties. I call them floaties in the middle of the river. I just thought they were kind of silly, but they are big, 1,000 feet of them, and we have 1,200 miles of river. But I don't think Abbott's going to do anything, and the district judge threw that out. That claim of an invasion, that was a sidebar of their argument, the state's argument, Abbott's argument about how he would have the authority to put the buoys out there. He was more focused on the legal ramifications of international borders and trade and things like that. I don't think the state's going to win that argument on invasion. I just don't. And here's the problem we've got, Jenna, is that most of the people coming over have papers. They really do. They're processing these all these thousands of people in Mexico. The federal government they can get on an app and download their amnesty papers, and they've got all these non-government organizations, NGOs, Catholic Charities, the Methodists, the Presbyterian, and all the do-gooders over in Mexico, handing these people paperwork. And so when they get to our side of the river, they're legal. They've already got amnesty papers. And so this is a huge problem. And that's why this incrementalism that Abbott's been jacking with for several years. And, you've had governors in Texas. There were 4 open borders and Republican governors, but doesn't work. Incrementalism just proves that you don't have courage. Incrementalism is a disaster. It's just doesn't work. There's not near enough boldness there. And of course, what we're lacking in this country more than anything is courage and somebody that's really ready to display that. It's the tip of the spear of all of our virtues. But besides that,
amen to that.
Yeah, Abbott's not going to do it. He's just not. And so we'll keep getting piecemeal approaches. I mean, look, the politicians love to solve the symptoms of the problem instead of solving the problem. When I was in Austin, I was just shocked. I'm a business guy, and we make our living solving problems and monetizing those solutions. And let me tell you, I just couldn't get over how all the other people in Austin, I'd never been in politics, they don't really care about solving the problem. And Abbott doesn't either. Most of the things he does is for show. It just is. He'll go down there, have a press conference. He closes a park. He puts the buoys up, and he has all the sheriffs stand behind him. Oh, look, we're doing a lot of stuff on the border. And then, everybody's mad they can cut the razor wire now. Well, let me tell you that our guys were helping the immigrants. We got videos of that getting over the razor wire. So putting ladders up so they wouldn't get cut. And, they weren't repelling anybody coming across the river. And when building the wall, look, I'm all for building the wall, but all that does is funnel all the illegals and all these people coming across into the border checkpoint so the Border Patrol can let them loose. I mean, I've been down there and everybody's asking, how far does the wall go so they can follow? Where's the nearest checkpoint so they can turn themselves in and they get turned loose in an amnesty hearing case or whatever, and they won't have to come back and they disappear in the United States. So that's a symptom of the problem. The problem is people getting in the river. And the only way you're going to get somebody from getting in the river is if Mexico stops them. The federal government, the United States, has never secured the river, ever. I mean, Trump did a better job than some, but the federal government is never going to secure that border. It's not in their interest to secure the border. It's really laughable to even contemplate them securing the border because they've weaponized it. They want to turn Texas blue. They got California and Arizona. They always had New Mexico. We're the last border state remaining. Trump got 52% of the vote here in 20. We're very close to going blue. Texas will go blue. We cannot survive millions of people pouring into this state and their kids getting birthright citizenship and all voting 10 years from now. It's just not. Whites are a minority in Texas. So the demographics have completely shifted. And unless a lot of folks that are first generation immigrants and second decide to join the Republican Party, we're in trouble.
Yeah, you unfortunately paint a very bleak picture, and I think you're right to do that, Don Huffines, rather than to simply kind of go for the top level talking points that a lot of the GOP, certainly on the federal level, gravitate towards. And as you said, and I think rightly so, a lot of the Republicans like Abbott and politicians are just looking to cure the symptoms, not the problem. And so you had mentioned previously about holding Mexico accountable, and that's really the solution. And I know that you spoke about this at length when you ran for governor in the primary against Greg Abbott. And I personally am very disappointed that Texas did not see the wisdom in selecting you, because if you were governor right now, how would you handle this differently?
Well, it'd be completely different. It's got to be very strategic. It's got to be very thought out. You need plan A, plan B, plan C, because if the federal courts rule this way, what are you going to do next? And enacting Article 1, Section 10 was a big part of my policy, and you can go to the website and read it. It's all spelled out there. But everything's a matter of strength, and strength comes in numbers, and it's really who's got the biggest gun. And I'm not talking about declaring war on the United States or anything like that. I mean, but it really entails getting other states involved, getting other states' National Guard. Our Guard is this Texas Army. It's very robust. We have Air Guard. We got F-16s. We got armor. We got all kinds of stuff. And every road that leads to those bridges is a state road. The Texas taxpayers have built them, and we maintain them. We can unmaintain them. We have got to put the political pressure on Mexico. The economic pressure. Mexico responds to economic pressure. We do over $800 million worth of trade with Mexico a day. And they're going to react. They can and will secure the river. And when I was on like I told you, on the committee for border security in the state Senate, all the military came in and said when the Mexican army gets there and the Marines, they can go on break and take a break. Nobody crosses the river. They have different rules of engagement on their side of the river. And we can pull the roads up. Tourism's 13% of the GDP in Mexico. We can start an ad campaign and just hammer tourism in Mexico. And all we have to do is use the United States government State Department website, which they don't even allow their own team members to go to 6 different states in Mexico. It's so dangerous, and cartels. And we take off 2 to 3 points of their GDP real easy by hammering tourism. And we're spending $2+ billion a year, Texas taxpayers are, to supplement border security. And its border's more open and worse than it's ever been. It's just a waste of money. But I think it's all about economic pressure. And I think Mexico will respond, and Mexico will shut down the border on their side. And you don't have to worry about the federal government. The federal government can't keep you doing any of that.
Right. Well, and that is a much more practical solution and an actual solution than what a lot of conservatives and a lot of the media commentary has been in the last 24 hours since the Supreme Court opinion has just been, well, should Texas just ignore this opinion and continue to put up the barbed wire? Should they not allow Border Patrol to come in? You know, all of these types of things, which to me, it seems like they're forcing themselves into this kind of a false dilemma where it's either you follow the Supreme Court decision or you don't, and suffer the consequences either way, rather than choosing this what seems to me to be obvious third path, which is what you're describing. So why can't Republicans get it together? I mean, and actually do things that are practical and reasonable? I mean, I think it's so frustrating.
Well, you got to remember, politics is in play, and fear is a huge driver for people to vote. And also, like I said a while ago, they don't want to solve the problem. Abbott doesn't really want to solve the problem. The only reason he's paying any attention to it is because one reason is because we ran against him and caused him to really focus on this issue, and which is the number one issue for the United States and Texas. But he didn't pay any attention to the border. He's been governor now for 10 years. He's gone for 12. We have no term limits here. He's a political animal, as most people are that are in politics. They're just political animals. To answer your question, it's pretty much every man for themselves, and they're thinking about themselves and not about liberty. They're not thinking about what's down the road and about freedom, and making money for all these folks is paramount. I mean, when you shut that border down, you're going to hear him squealing from Ottawa to Mexico City, and he'll give in to the pressure and open it back up. And people value their money more than they value their liberty. But I think it's very resolvable. I don't want to be just a complete dark cloud, but I don't see it changing much. I mean, look, they can ratchet it down a little bit, and they can start making them wait in Mexico and stuff like that. Well, you get your amnesty. The problem is not waiting in Mexico. The problem's amnesty to begin with. This was a Ronald Reagan decision. Ronald Reagan is, of course, I loved Ronald Reagan, but he's the one that gave them all amnesty to begin with. And that caused a complete reset of our culture in Texas, complete reset. And so this amnesty was all about, if people don't realize, this is a relic of the Cold War. This is so people fleeing communist countries, particularly Russia and Eastern Europe and Cuba, could all come to the United States and get amnesty. And it was to help destabilize those communist-run countries. It's never left the books. And now they've expanded it. I mean, it's just typical government, totally out of control. And the Democrats realize that this is a great way for them to take over the United States and the world. And this is they're very long-term oriented. They've already did this in Western Europe. I put out there that's maybe why Gaddafi got thrown out. You know, he was a thug and all that, and he was a tyrant. But it's to destabilize Libya. And it was the same way of Assad to destabilize Syria. So you'd have millions of refugees flooding into Western Europe and changing their culture. And they did. Paris isn't the same. London's not the same. The Scandinavian countries aren't. You have one country over there holding the line, and that's Hungary. And they know they could do that in the United States, but they didn't have to worry about boats. They just opened the borders and people from Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, Africa. I mean, thousands and thousands of people are pouring into this country. And they're surging the border now, and they're surging it because they think Trump might win and Trump might do something a little bit, but it wasn't totally secure when he was president. But they're going to surge it as hard as they can, and that's what they're doing.
Well, and Don Huffines, as you're laying this out so eloquently, it's just reminding me that Democrats are the ones that actually want to govern, and their governing policies are bad. They want to govern in the ways that will usher in an era of communism and of this, total control and infringement upon liberty and freedom. And they're doing this, and it is incremental, and they're seeing success in it. And on the flip side, we have these politicians, and again, I mean, not that Democrats aren't politicians and concerned about their own money and these other problems as well, but for a lot of Republicans who are too concerned about being celebrity stars on Fox News, or wanting the popularity, or just wanting the money, or having the political agendas, all of these things, we need to, as conservatives, start voting for people who actually want to govern and actually understand what it is that you're saying. And I don't think that this is going to really change anytime soon necessarily at the ballot box. But in terms of voting, and in terms of, the best way for we, the people, and especially those people in Texas right now, what is the best way that they can engage and actually get people in office that understand what's at stake here?
Well, it's a great question, Jenna. People always ask me, what can they do? And I say that you can do a lot. The power of the individual is really unlimited. I like to think of it as bottom up and not top down. Those are always the most successful organizations and the most successful political campaigns. I encourage everyone to do whatever they feel called to do. If you want to start a new group, a border security group, or you want to have neighborhood meetups about it, or you want to get behind a candidate and you want to wave bed sheets off an overpass, or whatever it is, it's the creativity of people. It's the free market. And I really value a lot of minds over one or two minds, and working on this. And I think the biggest issue is that we've got to convince the people in power that how significant and really how desperate we are right now, and where we are in this process of losing our country and our liberty. Because remember, there has not been one liberty-loving government ever south of the Rio Grande. Let's just face it. Most people of the world do not understand that our liberties come from God and not the government. They think the government provides them everything they ever wanted in life, their jobs, their education, and everything like that. And that's, of course, what the Democrats want them to believe, and they're going to fight back. The Democrats are extremely smart, and they know exactly what they're doing. And so it's we have got to wake up the sheep and stir them. And when we do, Americans usually make the right decision. I just don't know if you can unwind this one.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that you are staying in the fight, Don Huffines, and you're doing all that you can and spending considerable time, effort, and resources on these issues, on educating others what we can do on some of these constitutional questions and policy questions, and all the work that you do at the Huffines Liberty Foundation. So people can go there, huffinesliberty.com, and get involved. You can donate there as well. As a nonprofit that's just, I know you just exist because you love America and you love Texas, and you want to be engaged in these issues for as long as we have left to be the United States of America as we know it. And I don't think that it's just hyperbole or fear mongering to suggest that truly, as Reagan said, I mean, liberty is just one generation away from extinction, and we're realizing that. Today, I think in a greater threat than we have certainly in my lifetime, and certainly in a long time in America. So I really appreciate all of your insights, Don Huffines, and thank you for everything that you do for this country. And just real quick, tell people about the Huffines Liberty Foundation, just generally why that's set up and how they can get involved there.
Sure. Well, go to our website, like you just said, huffinesliberty.com on the address. And we're focused on solving the problem and not the symptoms of the problem. And so we give common sense solutions. Most of our papers have a conclusion of what the solutions are, and we try to target big issues. These are a lot of provincial issues for the state of Texas. That's where we're focused. But that's how you can go there. Go to the website, look up what we're working on. And I just remind everybody that liberty is fleeting, like you said. And we're so preconditioned by mainstream media, which is never on our side. Never. And that was one of the blessings of COVID, if there was one, is that people really recognize the fact that the government is liars. The government lies. I can assure you firsthand experience that they do. And as a patriot, you don't just have the authority to question government. You've got an obligation to question government. So this is the government for the people and by the people and not by the elitist. And it's not for the deep state. It's for us. And there's a point when we can only do so much. But as long as people know what's happening, is the best solution right now.
Amen to that. Well, Don Huffines, I always so appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're certainly welcome, Jenna. Have a great day and God bless everybody.
Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce, 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now.